The military mess hall buzzed with laughter and conversation, trays clattering together amidst the rich aroma of hot stew and freshly baked bread. Soldiers savoured rare moments of relaxation, sharing battlefield stories and light-hearted jokes, trying to momentarily forget the harsh realities of military life. Suddenly, that vibrant energy was suffocated by an unexpected silence. The mess hall doors swung open forcefully, and in walked none other than President Donald Trump. There were no noisy press crews or flashing cameras, just a few military officials and his discreet Secret Service detail. Reflexively, the soldiers shot to their feet, their eyes filled with a mix of confusion and surprise. Trump scanned the room with a sharp gaze, then spoke in a warm yet firm voice. "At ease, soldiers. Mind if I join you?" No one responded immediately. The silence stretched for a few breaths. Private Jack Nolan clenched his fork, his eyes darting between his food tray and the president standing before him. Across from him, Sergeant Olivia Martinez exchanged a meaningful glance with her comrades. This was not something they ever expected to happen on an ordinary day. Eventually, the soldiers slowly sat down. Trump walked straight to an empty chair, pulled it out, and sat as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He placed his hands on the table, his gaze sweeping across each face as he said, "I'm here to listen, not as a politician, but as someone who wants to deeply understand what you're going through." His words echoed in the air, thick with skepticism. Jack felt conflicted, part of him wanting to speak, but another part wondering if this was just another hollow political gesture. The silence lingered until Olivia broke it, her voice sharp, yet tinged with emotion. "You really want to know what it feels like?" Trump nodded. Olivia gestured toward the soldiers around her. "It's the feeling of missing the most important moments in life, from a child's first steps to final goodbyes with loved ones. We serve with pride, but sometimes we wonder, does anyone really see these sacrifices?" Trump listened intently, his eyes fixed on Olivia's face. The mess hall grew heavier, no longer just a place filled with casual chatter, but one brimming with untold stories. "What's the hardest part of serving?" Trump asked, his voice soft but cutting through the silence like a blade. Olivia took a deep breath. "It's not the training or the combat, sir. The hardest part is the fear that, when we leave the military, we'll be forgotten." Trump leaned forward, his eyes reflecting deep contemplation. Corporal Ethan Brooks added softly, "We gave our youth to this country, but when we come home, it feels like starting from scratch." Trump nodded, his face solemn. He had read reports, seen statistics, but nothing compared to hearing it directly from those living that reality. Olivia steadied herself, her voice trembling slightly. "I have a son, Mr. President. He's 6 years old." Trump nodded gently, encouraging her to continue. "Last year I missed his birthday, his first day of school, and even Christmas. He asked me why I wasn't there, and I couldn't give him an answer that felt right." Trump's eyes softened, the sternness often seen in public speeches fading, leaving only a man listening to a mother's pain. "We serve because we love this country," Olivia continued, her voice quieter, almost as if speaking to herself. "But sometimes it feels like we have to choose between being good soldiers and good parents." The room fell into a heavy silence. Trump exhaled slowly, then replied, "You should never have to make that choice." His words shattered an invisible barrier. One by one, soldiers began sharing their stories. A medic spoke of the helplessness in watching comrades take their last breaths on the battlefield. A young private admitted struggling with PTSD, too ashamed to seek help. Trump didn't interrupt. He sat there, absorbing every word, as if each sentence carved itself into his memory. "We don't need speeches or promises," Jack finally spoke, his voice steady. "We need real action." Trent met his gaze, nodding slowly. "That's exactly why I'm here. No notepad, no empty promises. Just the profound silence of genuine understanding. And that meant more than any speech ever could." Master Sergeant Daniel Briggs, a seasoned soldier with 25 years of service, cleared his throat, his voice wavering with emotion. "Mr. President, I had a friend. He dedicated his entire life to the military. When he got out, he had no job, no family. He died homeless. The mess hall grew even quieter, if that was possible. No one dared to breathe, no one blinked. Daniel's voice cracked. We gave the best years of our lives to protect this country. All we ask is not to be forgotten. But when some of us come home, there's nothing waiting for us. A heavy silence engulfed the mess hall after Master Sergeant Daniel Briggs' final words. President Donald Trump clenched his jaw, his piercing gaze clouded with deep contemplation. He had stood before countless crowds, read hundreds of reports on veterans, but now, these stories weren't just statistics. They were raw, painful truths. That should never happen, Trump said, his voice low but resolute. We don't just owe you respect, we owe you safety and a dignified life after service. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes meeting those of the attentive soldiers. Beyond their words, he felt the weight of their losses, the sacrifices etched into every pause and breath. You're not just numbers in a report, he continued, his voice carrying genuine emotion. Each of you has a story, and those stories deserve to be heard by the world. The room remained quiet, but this time it wasn't skepticism. It was understanding. Some soldiers nodded, their eyes glinting with a fragile hope. It had been a long time since they felt truly heard. Trump took a deep breath. America is strong because of you. It's time we prove that with actions, not just words. His words cut through the tension like a breeze through thick air. Maybe, just maybe, things could change. Placing both hands firmly on the table, Trump looked around with unwavering determination. I promise you this, he said, his voice steady. I will ensure that veterans and active service members are never forgotten, not just while I'm in office, but forever. Skepticism lingered in a few glances, but there was something different in how he spoke. This wasn't the promise of a politician, it was the vow of a man who understood the value of loyalty and sacrifice. Hold me accountable, he added, locking eyes with the room. If I don't deliver, you have every right to call me out. As Trump left the mess hall, soldiers gathered in small groups, whispering about what had just happened. Do you think he meant it? Jack asked Olivia. Olivia watched the president's figure disappear down the hall before replying. I don't know, she sighed. But if he does, it could change everything. Doubt and hope intertwined in every soldier's heart. Only time would reveal whether those words would turn into actions. In the days that followed, life at the base returned to its routine. But something had shifted. Olivia couldn't shake Trump's promise from her mind. Would he really keep his word? Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump sat in the Oval Office, the soldiers' stories echoing in his thoughts. He picked up the phone and called his advisors. I want a real plan. No bureaucracy, no red tape. These soldiers gave everything for this country. It's time we give back. His team sprang into action. They were used to Trump's fast-paced decision-making, but this was different. It wasn't just policy, it was personal. Within days, a detailed draft proposal landed on his desk. It included improvements in veteran healthcare, support for transitioning service members, and enhanced mental health services. Trump reviewed every line, his focus sharp. Not enough, he muttered, jotting down notes in the margins. He wanted immediate action, not just long-term promises. Back at the base, Olivia received an unexpected email. It was a survey asking about the biggest concerns soldiers face after leaving the military. She frowned, wondering if this was connected to Trump's visit. A small spark of hope flickered inside her. Across other bases, soldiers noticed something unusual. Surveys were being conducted, and officials quietly gathered information to better understand the real needs of service members. Sergeant Briggs received a call from a Veterans Affairs officer inquiring about the circumstances surrounding his late friend. Jack overheard officers discussing new resources for transitioning soldiers. That brief mess hall visit had ignited something real. Back in Washington, Trump sat in a meeting with military leaders. No soldier should be homeless. No soldier should feel abandoned, he stated, his voice sharp as steel. The room fell silent, not out of indifference but shared conviction. This wasn't just talk anymore. Change was on the horizon. One morning, Olivia received a call from an old friend. Marcus, a veteran who had struggled to adjust after leaving the military. "Olivia, I don't know how, but I just got a call. They invited me to join a job placement program. I thought I was forgotten." Olivia's heart raced. Could this be the sign of real change? Trump had once mentioned Marcus, a veteran who had been unemployed for nearly 2 years. Now someone was reaching out to him. Olivia set down her phone, her gaze distant. If a veteran like Marcus was getting help, how many others might follow? She had always been skeptical, but now, that doubt was beginning to shift. One evening, as soldiers gathered in the mess hall, the television flickered on, casting flashes of light across sweat-dampened faces after a long day of training. President Donald Trump appeared at the podium, his voice resonating through the room. "I sat with brave men and women in uniform. I listened to their stories, and I made a promise." Olivia leaned forward, her heart quickening as he continued. "Today, I am signing an executive order to expand healthcare for veterans, job programs, and mental health support. No soldier will be left behind." Murmurs rippled through the mess hall. This wasn't just another speech. It was happening. Private Jack whispered, "I think he means it." A wave of hope quietly spread, but not everyone was convinced. "Let's see if this lasts," another soldier muttered, skepticism lingering from years of empty promises. Yet, within weeks, signs of change began to emerge. More outreach calls, increased funding for veteran programs, and a new initiative connecting veterans with career mentors. Even the mess hall saw improvements, with new recreational areas and upgraded facilities. Cautious optimism began to replace doubt. Olivia received a letter from a fellow female soldier. "I finally got leave to attend my son's school play. I never thought that would happen." Change was real. One afternoon, Olivia was called to the base commander's office. "Sergeant Martinez, you've been invited to the White House." She blinked, surprised. "Me?" The commander handed her an official invitation. Trump wanted to meet the group of soldiers who had spoken with him that day in the mess hall. Within 48 hours, Olivia found herself stepping into the White House, standing alongside familiar faces, Jack, Daniel, and a few others. The president entered, greeting them warmly. "Welcome back. Let's talk." Trump sat across from the soldiers in a private meeting room. "I made promises. I want to know if we're delivering." The soldiers exchanged glances. Olivia spoke first. "There's been progress, sir, but there's still work to do." Trump nodded, his gaze sharp. "Tell me what's missing." They discussed everything: deployment hardships, mental health support, and financial struggles. Trump listened intently, took notes, and asked tough questions. He wasn't looking for praise. He was looking for solutions. At the meeting's end, he stood and shook each of their hands. "This isn't a one-time fix. We're going to keep improving, and I expect you to hold me accountable." That evening, the soldiers attended a military appreciation event. When Trump took the stage, he shared their stories, calling out Olivia, Jack, and Daniel by name. "These are the people who serve our country. I promised them, and every soldier, they will never be forgotten." He paused, his eyes sweeping the crowd. Every soldier deserves more than just a thank you. They deserve real action. Applause erupted. Olivia looked around, sensing a shift. This wasn't just inspiring rhetoric, it was backed by real change. For the first time in years, she truly believed. As time passed, the impact of that mess hall visit continued to ripple. Homelessness among veterans decreased, job placement programs expanded, and military families received greater support. Trump had kept his word. At the base, Olivia and Jack sat in the mess hall, reflecting on the day Trump walked in. "Crazy to think," Jack chuckled. "One visit changed everything." Olivia nodded. He came to listen. Then he acted. A reminder that leadership isn't about speeches, it's about action. As they finished their meal, they noticed something new on the mess hall wall. A gleaming brass plaque engraved with the words, "No soldier forgotten." If this story has touched your heart, we'd love for you to share its message by liking and sharing it with your friends, helping us reach our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers, which means the world to us and allows us to create more meaningful stories for you. Don't forget to share your thoughts about the story and let us know which city you're watching from. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in our next story.